Hidden Gems, Episode 70. A is for Alchemist. Welcome to Hidden Gems, a board game podcast where we review unusual, forgotten, and underappreciated board games. We're your hosts. My name is Chris.
I'm Jason.
And this is Bill.
Thanks for listening to our show.
Welcome back, guys.
That's right. Boy, folks, let me tell you, the energy in this room, it's electric in here. We are high energy in here tonight. Let me tell you. I mean, we're about to blow the roof off of this place. Right?
Soaking down some cider out here. It's 32 degrees outside.
Jason's bouncing off the walls. Bill's electric right now. I can't wait.
By which Chris means we're all about to fall asleep.
Not true. I think we just rebounded right now.
The cider is helping a little bit.
It is helping. You ever been in those social situations where you feel like you're trying to bring the energy level up and it's just not happening?
Mm-hmm.
Do you find yourself in that situation often?
Not often, actually. It's usually not me. I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm just in a good mood for some reason. Probably because we haven't recorded in like 6 weeks. So
yeah, that's my fault, I suppose. So
no
I guess,
fault.
Yeah, no, well, yeah. To just bring people up to speed, I guess we do recognize we are a couple weeks behind.
We are, yeah.
My family, unfortunately, had sort of a tragic loss in the family recently, and it's kind of taken its toll on our immediate family and just kind of tending to my wife's sister and everything going on around that, funeral preparations and whatnot. So kind of a sad time for us, but felt like the right thing to just take some time and
Totally.
Do what needed to be done in that regard. So but we're back.
Yeah, we were glad to give it to you. I know it's hard for you. I'm sorry, man. I think you were even like the officiant, were you not?
Yeah, so I officiated their wedding a couple years back, and so as part of the arrangements for this, they asked me to do that, and I was happy to.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, we're glad you're back, and again, prayers to your family. Sorry that happened.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, appreciate it. But yeah, we're back. We're ready to go with another episode.
That's right.
And another theme.
Another themed
That's
episode
right.
theory.
In the spirit of Thanksgiving and thankfulness, we're thankful to have you back. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Chris, did you do anything awesome for Thanksgiving?
Chilled at the house. That's how we do it in the alley house.
Oh, awesome.
So we made a decision years ago that for Thanksgiving, pretty much the whole holiday, we don't travel. And our family understands that. We love them dearly. They love us. But we just decided we'll see you at Christmas, Thanksgiving.
It's the best thing ever.
Oh, and we love it. We wake up on Thanksgiving morning, turn on the Macy's Day Parade. That's going on in the background. We cook all day, hang out with the kids. We usually do our Christmas stuff that evening/night, but we did it early this year for some reason. But don't judge me.
Good for you.
We usually don't. But yeah, we just hang at the house and recharge, and great.
It's good to get those 2 days of travel. I mean, for me, it's a full 8 or 10 hours whenever we go somewhere like that. And
you just got back today, right?
I did just get back today. So every year, except for the last two, for the last like 20 something, I'll go visit my brother and sister-in-law, and they both have their chemical doctorates and love to cook. So if there's a place in the country that you want to go, it's my brother and sisters, and they love good wine. And so there's so many good things about going. And they play board games. So it's like, hey, this is a destination place to go. And the funny part is, yes, they keep adding people to it. So there was actually 25 people there for 3 days that they were feeding all the time. And it really was
sick. I can't make it in this year. Sorry.
True. I mean, if you don't like people, then it would probably get to you after a while. But we were like all staying with different people in the neighborhood. We were staying in 4 different houses in the neighborhood.
Oh, cool.
So that part was all cool because they'd all gone away and they're all good friends there. I mean, she really is like a military logistics machine because she has her spreadsheets out. She has food coming in at certain times. I mean,
oh, wow.
The menu of every day is printed up on the table so you know what's happening. And
so this is like multiple days of like quality meals.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh. Every night is, it's hard to say that it's better than the last night, but it's just amazing.
That's cool.
So, yes, I'm afraid to step on the weights. The scales now. It's been a week of drinking too much, eating too much, and a few board games. So
that's awesome.
I'll comment on a couple of those.
Yeah. Tell everybody what the hit of the trip was, Bill. For our listening audience.
Chris
Vindicate me.
Yes, he wants to be vindicated so bad. Potion explosion.
Yes.
I ended up like buying it. I bought the app on my phone and was enjoying the app, and I saw on the Facebook Marketplace somebody was selling it for like $10 or $15, I think, something pretty cheap.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd grab it and see what it was like, because I really, since Chris wouldn't show me his,
boy, here we go.
I wanted to see what the marble thing looked like. It was pretty cool. I mean, it is a gimmick.
100%.
But yeah, they liked it. I mean, they're really kind of lined up to try it, because I don't know. It's one of those games, I think, that you can kind of see it, know what you're going to do, and like kind of make plans.
It's immediately intuitive, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to get this potion to do that. And anyway, it was fun to watch, because it was people got excited when they got a big flood of ingredients kind of thing. So
yes, well, that makes me feel good, because on Discord I got accosted for having Potion Explosion in my top 100 games of all time. So apparently, I guess it's too light or too family friendly. But man, it's a banger. I think Potion Explosion's a super fun game. Awesome. Proudly in my top 100 games.
Awesome. I may have to slip in mine now, since I get to update mine every time I play a game.
That's right.
The two games I wanted to talk about, by the way, was one was Viticulture. Either one of you guys played Viticulture?
Oh, yeah, several times.
Long time ago. It's been forever.
Yeah.
It's being wine people, they like it. It's a little long, I think.
Yeah,
for me.
I was going to say that one's a little bit heavier, right? You had people there that were good with it.
Yeah,
could rock it.
Yeah. They're at least medium board game players.
Yeah. So that'd be fine.
Viticulture was fine. And then I was able to finally get I called it Flamme Rouge. Yes, Flamme, and I call it Flamme. Exactly.
Yeah.
The precursor to Heat, I guess.
Yeah.
It's definitely simpler, but in its own way, I kind of might like it better because of that simplicity.
Yeah.
You can kind of see what you're doing, how the drafting works out.
Getting in, what is that called, a peloton or something?
Yeah, getting in the peloton. I've been been looking for the expansion peloton. I wanted to get it so bad before it went down, and that is like super, super hard to find. I look forward.
I've never played with the expansion before.
Yeah, apparently it adds players, and I think it adds like a peloton that goes a certain speed that you can get up with it, so you can be part of that peloton or not. It's got good reviews. It's like 7.8 or something like that, but it showed up on Noble Knights. I put a flag to see it, but before I could, after I looked at my email going directly to Noble Knights, it was already sold.
Wow.
So that's how much of a demand.
That's weird, because it's an older game, but I guess it's hard to find.
Yeah, I think it is hard to find.
Yeah.
Yes. And then, of course, I called it Flamme Rouge. And one of the new sets of people that came down is my nephew's girlfriend's parents, which is like, this is how extended family's coming to this. And she turns out to be a French teacher. And so she corrected me. I believe that's Flamme. I was like, oh, okay, because it didn't have an accent on the E, I guess. But they played it with me because they were really into the Tour de France, which was like, and so people who like that should definitely play this game. So.
Awesome.
Nice.
Good stuff.
Yeah. We got we had our big old Thanksgiving as well. No board games involved in this one, unfortunately, but I think we had 35 people this time.
Oh my goodness. That is a lot.
It was a lot. But yeah. I mean, I've talked about it in the past. Same deal. Nothing too crazy.
Was that local, or did you go somewhere?
Yeah, no, at our house.
Okay. Oh my gosh.
So yeah, we do a little bit of furniture rearranging and whatnot, but it was a good time. So
you have enough rooms that you could probably
I was
put
going to
that
say you got plenty of space for 35.
Yeah,
now.
it's a little easier now than it was in our previous house. So
yeah. How many of those are kids?
I think there were 11 kids this year.
Okay,
so not a ton, but yeah,
but just enough to keep me away.
Yeah,
my wife went.
Chris is invited every year and he never comes. But
you know I love you from afar.
From across the table and nowhere else.
In all fairness, the Dolphins were playing, so I had to watch the football game, watch us lose again. But
yeah, your sons watched it at my house just fine.
Well, that's right, because your son's a Packers fan. Who we were playing the Packers, which would have made it even worse. To have Gavin rubbing it in my face.
Oh, that's awesome.
All right. Well, we don't have a cocktail yet.
Oh, wait.
So
I didn't do any of my banter.
Oh.
You're just going to skip all my
Oh,
stuff?
yeah, I guess Chris has some stuff to share too. So
I do have some things to talk about.
Show me what game you're playing on your phone while he talks about it.
This is what the people want. We talked about this before we recorded tonight. Apparently, all people listen to is our banter, and then they turn us off. But that's okay. We're glad that you're here. We're glad that you're listening, banter-only people. We appreciate you. So I am here for you. I know they're trying to move us ahead. I'm not
sure I believe we're that interesting, but
apparently we
fine.
are. I've had several people tell me they just listen to our banner and turn us off. So it's fine. Love y'all. So I've got two things to talk about. First is a video game. I've actually been wanting to talk about this for a little while. I finished it a while back. It just hasn't been a good opportunity to bring it up. That's a game called Tales of Iron. You know this one?
I feel like you talked about this already on here.
Did I?
Thought so, or maybe you just told us about it. I don't know.
That I might have been playing it. I don't think I have.
Okay.
Well, if I have, you're going to hear about it again, I guess. Tales is Tails of Iron, and that's because this is about a mouse. This is about a mouse named Reggie. And the story behind it is Reggie is the youngest brother of 3 other mice, and he's kind of like the runt, trying to prove himself. He lives in a castle in a kingdom. His father's the king. And
Wait, is this a video game or a comic book?
this is a video game.
Okay, all right.
I'm giving you the story because I wanted to mention the story, because one thing I want to say about it is the story is a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for? A little formulaic. It feels a little familiar.
Mm-hmm.
But I've come to appreciate games now that tend to be a little bit more straightforward in the storytelling. Because I've played so many recently that just get so convoluted that I'm just like, what the heck is going on? You know what I'm talking about, man?
Yeah, I've just played one similar to that.
It's like they're trying too hard to be
Innovative.
and it just gets lame. You know what I'm saying? What were you going to say? Go ahead.
No, I was just saying I played one recently. I'm not going to talk about it because it ended up being not that great. But yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Had bad translation stuff too, which has made it more complicated.
Yeah, so the story, while it can feel familiar, it's well done. It's very much storybook-ish, I would say. But I wouldn't say the game is mature, but it's actually very violent. Like, I'm talking about, like, these mice and stuff, but, like, they're, like, guts fall out, like, when they get killed. Like, it's kind of violent, okay?
It's like Watership Down mice.
Yeah, exactly, right? Run for your life. But there's
Big wig.
toads that take over the kingdom and kill his father. This all happens in, like, the first 5 minutes. I'm not spoiling anything. And so you're basically on, like, a path of revenge to avenge your father, reclaim the kingdom because it gets overrun by these frog people, and you're trying to take it back, basically. It's a side-scrolling action-adventure game with combat, but what I like about it, and I mention this a lot when I talk about video games, I don't have a lot of patience for just button mashers, where you're just randomly pushing buttons. I don't enjoy games like that. This one, you have to be very precise, or you'll get wrecked. You'll absolutely get destroyed. So there are 2 like little icons that will flash over your head that give you like an indication, or it might be over the enemy's head, I can't remember, that you either need to dodge, like roll, or you need to parry. And if you don't do one of those 2 things with the appropriate cue, you will get hit. It's the only way to avoid it. And then there's also just the regular attack patterns that you kind of have to memorize, right? There's a lot of that pattern memorization, kind of old school. I always compare it to Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, where they'll give you those little visual flicks or cues.
The hunch down before he does the
right,
uppercut.
that kind of lets you know what's coming, and you have to learn that, right? Because if you don't learn how to parry, and you don't learn how to block or dodge roll, and you don't learn how to avoid, you will get killed numerous times in this game. And there are actually a couple spots in this game that I was like, is this a hard stop? Am I not going to advance past this? Because I fight the guy like 4 or 5 times, and I'm like not even a quarter way through his health bar, and I'm like, there's no way I'm going to beat this guy.
Dude, you have to play 9 Souls.
Okay, so you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It's like that. You feel like, well, it's over for me, but you finally figure it out, right?
Yeah.
So that's Tales of Iron. It's difficult, but I really, really enjoyed it. I think it's worth playing.
Nice.
Yeah.
Not in my wheelhouse.
I sent you the link to 9 Souls. It's on Switch now.
I did see that.
So there's no
For
excuse.
the sale, yeah.
Yeah. It's your next play.
Okay.
I'm telling you, the more I think back on it, the more I'm beginning to become convinced that I like it more than Hollow Knight. And that is
Really?
that's a huge statement.
That is a
for
huge
me.
statement.
So it's game of the year for sure.
Should I play it before or after Hades?
Before.
Before. Okay. Yeah. All right, man. I'll throw it on there. I'll add it.
This is tunic level recommendation.
Okay.
So.
All right. Well, you didn't lead me wrong there. All right. The second thing I'm going to talk about really quickly is something I've never talked about on the podcast before. Okay. The topic, and that's music.
Oh boy. Okay.
Okay. And that's mostly because I'm perpetually trapped in the early aughts. Nobody wants to hear me talk about Linkin Park,
Limp Bizkit, and Linkin Park,
and System of a Down. And that's basically what I listened to because that was when I was in high school and college. It just speaks to me. And that's just the music I enjoy. And music now is not like that. And that makes sense. I mean, music evolves, but just rock music in general just isn't really cool right now amongst younger kids. Like my teenagers, none of them enjoy it.
As in Rolling Stones, Eagles.
Just don't like it.
Okay.
Not even like more contemporary rock. They just don't like it. They want more poppy stuff. Like my kids and my wife went to a Benson Boone concert. Do you know who that is?
I know the name, but I don't know.
He's like really popular right now. I've listened to a couple of songs.
Poppy stuff.
Hard pass for me. I'm like, this is but this is what they're into.
There's Greta Van Fleet. They're holding it down on the classic rock side of things.
Yeah. Well, so that's a good segue. So I'm going to talk about a band that I feel like recaptures that rock essence that I love so much. And you guys have actually listened to them because I forced you to. And that's The Warning. Okay? The Warning is a rock band. It's three sisters from Mexico. Okay? Danny, Pau, or Paulina, and Ale. They're 24, 22, and 19 years old currently. Okay? When they started as a band, they were like, I think the youngest, Ale, was like 9 years old. 8 or 9 years old. I'm not joking.
That's crazy.
I am not joking. This is legit. So what happened was they started training on classical piano when they were like tiny, all of them. And then their parents got them the video game Rock Band. Have y'all played Rock Band?
Yeah.
Guitar Hero, but same thing.
Same thing, right. But with Rock Band, it's got the drums and everything.
Right.
So Danny, being the oldest, she's the lead guitarist and the lead vocalist. She started playing guitar in Rock Band. Pau, the middle sister, started on the drums. And then Ali, because she was the youngest, got stuck playing bass, basically. So they started playing Rock Band on the video games and played it every day and got obsessed with rock music. And they actually started learning their own instruments and became a rock band. I am not joking.
That's awesome.
It's wild, okay? So they got discovered. They started posting covers on YouTube, and they did a cover for Enter Sandman in, like, when was it? 2015. They were 9, 12, and 14 years old. You can watch this today. You can see it. It was so popular that they got invited onto the Ellen DeGeneres show that you can also watch on YouTube and see how small they are. But it's just really cool because I discovered them obviously now when they were much older, how they have progressed from when they were tiny children, basically. And they were good then to incredible musicians. If you like rock music, you owe it to yourself to try and just listen to this band. I feel like they capture a lot of different kind of styles. Does that make sense? Like sometimes they sound like Muse to me. Sometimes they sound like Linkin Park to me, actually.
Yeah, a little bit.
Which is probably why I
bit of
enjoy
Incubus,
them.
maybe.
Yeah, Incubus. They're not really copycatting, but you can tell they adopted their style from different bands. If that makes sense. Influenced by them, 100%. Right. So I'm going to recommend some songs. I'm going to try, listener, to get you to get excited about The Warning, okay? Because I think they're awesome. So I recommend you go onto YouTube and listen to these songs specifically. So Dust to Dust, live at Teatro Metropolitan. Money, Disciple, and Survive, also live at the Pepsi Center. So you may be asking yourself, why live? Why would you not listen to like the studio version? They're good, but these girls are incredible live. They're unbelievable. And I think because when they did the studio versions, they were younger. They've kind of perfected their sound, I feel like. And I think that those live shows, the Teatro Metropolitan, the Pepsi Center, are just so good. That's where I would recommend people start.
Cool.
One more thing. They just released a new album. No live performances because it's literally brand new. But if you want to check that out, there's studio versions of Automatic Sun, Sharks, which is the song that sounds like Linkin Park. That's actually the song that got me onto them. There's a song called Sharks, and I started listening to it. I was like, man, that sounds like Linkin Park. And then I proceeded to listen basically to their entire catalog. 6 Feet Deep and Escapism. Those are my recommendations.
Awesome.
Nice. Linkin Park is back too. Have you seen this?
They are back.
What were your thoughts on that?
Don't get me started. I will briefly say I have nothing against Emily Armstrong. I think she's a really good musician. I like some of their newer songs pretty good. The problem is, and this is not her fault, this is not their fault, but when they sing their old stuff, which when you're going to a concert, you expect to listen to their most popular songs, right? And they perform them. Because of her voice and how it's just different from Chester's voice, they have to change the key on a lot of songs. And it's just very noticeable. Like, it just doesn't sound right. You know, when you're like expecting to hear it a certain way, and then they have to change the key of the song because of the way her voice is, it just...
You can't sing along anymore?
I can't do it. Yeah, it's just too jarring for me. So, yeah, it's a pass, unfortunately, for me, which makes me sad. I'm kind of all in on the Warning right now anyway, so I've moved on.
It's got a new love.
I've moved on.
Nice.
Can't wait to check it out. I'll look at it.
They're awesome. We are starting a new series, yet another series on Hidden Gems. We're going to be working our way through the alphabet, folks, and we're starting with the letter A, obviously, tonight. So A is for Alchemist. So we're going to be reviewing a game called Alchemist. We're also going to be reviewing Abandoned Ship. And Bill's game that he brought for us to review is Age of Comics, which we're actually kind of looping in as Two and a New as well, because that's a new game. It came out on Kickstarter just recently. So.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
Jason's ready to move on.
Well, I think he's ready for the cocktail. That's what he's ready for.
Yeah, I think Chris originally was asking you what cocktail you brought.
Oh, I did. I brought a concoction my daughter made for their Friendsgiving they had 2 weeks ago, an apple cider. It could be bourbon in it. It could be rum. They raided my liquor cabinet, and I have to go look and see what's missing. But something's in there. But it wasn't bad. They did a good job.
Nice. So the drink I'm making, I'm going to bring it into the guys here when we break, is an amaretto sour. A is for amaretto. 1.5 ounces of amaretto, 1 ounce of bourbon, 3/4 ounce lemon juice, dash of simple syrup, and Jason, an egg white. Brace yourself.
I will.
All right, we bantered long enough, I think. I think the people that actually like to listen to us talk about the games are ready for us to move on. Ken's been ready.
He's fast forwarded.
All right, well, let's do it.
All right. The ship is sinking. The rats are up to their necks in water. They must get out quickly, but the route to the top deck is long and the water is rising. The trick is to help only your 3 rats. Each player has a different combination of rats they want to help abandon ship. Move your rats too quickly, and the other players will slow them down. Move them too slowly, and the water will wash them away. Save your rats, and collect the most cheese on your way to the top, and you win.
That sounds like an awesome game, Chris.
Abandon ship! Oh, boy. That was terrible. All right. Abandoned Ship, published in 2008 by AEG and Pegasus Spiele. At the time of this recording, its BGG ranking is 4,556. Designer of this game, Reiner Knizia.
Go Reiner.
Back again. We're just going to keep checking them off. So, brief rule summary for Abandoned Ship. Abandoned Ship is a hidden roll deduction game where the players are trying to get their rats up to the top deck of a sinking ship in order to score victory points and avoid drowning. So before I get into the rules, I have to describe what this board looks like because it's one of the coolest parts of the game for sure. So it's actually a fold-out ship where you've got the top deck and then this really long hull, I guess, which is split up into 36 levels. And then at the very bottom of the ship, you've got the water. Okay. In addition to that, you've got 5 pieces of cheese set at different intervals along the deck, worth 1 or 2 points. And then you have 7 different colors of rat with their corresponding color of dice, and then 1 wild white die. Okay? So how this works is, at the start of the game, the players will each randomly draw a circular token that has 3 colors on it. Okay, I'll emphasize that. 3 different colors. These are the 3 colors of mouse, or mice, I guess, that you want to see survive and make it to the top of the ship. So if I draw my token and it's black, red, green, those are the 3 mice that I am interested in seeing survive and do well. All the other ones I want to see not do well. Okay? So once everyone has their hidden rolls, the start player begins by rolling all of the dice in the dice pool, choosing 1 die to execute its action, and then passing the remaining unused dice to the player on their left. So it's important to note that once you use a die to move a certain mouse, that die is pulled out of the pool, with one exception that I'll talk about in a minute, and then the remaining dice are passed to the next player. So quickly, what's on these dice? Well, there's a few different things. On some faces, you'll just have a number. So let's say on the red die, there's a 4, and I choose that die. That means I move the red mouse 4 spaces up the decks towards the top of the ship. Okay? If there's a number on it with a circle around it, this is interesting in that the color of the die at that point doesn't matter. So let's say it's the red die and it's got a 4 with a circle around it. I could move the red mouse 4 spaces forward, or I could choose any other mouse. The circle gives me that flexibility. There's the anchor. If you roll that, you move that mouse backwards a number of spaces until it reaches the next mice. Why do I keep confusing those? Mice, mouse, who knows?
They're rats, aren't they?
Rats, whatever. The next rat behind them. So that could be just 2 spaces down, or it could be 12 spaces down, depending on how far behind the next rat is. If it has an X on it, that means that it stays in the dice pool. So if you use that face, that dice is not pulled out. And then lastly, the white die. Got to talk about this thing. Has a couple of zinger faces on it. So there's one that has an 11 on it. It lets you move any color mouse. Good grief. I'm going to do it the whole review, guys.
It must be dice and mice.
It's screwing me up bad. 11 spaces forward. Okay? It's important to understand. And then there's another face that lets you move a mouse forward to the next one in front of it. Okay? So play will continue on in this way, with players rolling and choosing dice until only 1 die remains in the die pool. At this point, play pauses and the sinking ship token is drawn at random. These ships have a random number on them and will indicate how many spaces the ship will sink below the water. So this is kind of cool. You actually pull the ship down and it sinks into this cardboard water slider thing. And if it hits a mouse, that mouse will drown, and it's eliminated from the game. Okay, if it hits 2 or more on the same space, they will sit there until only 1 is left, as other mice leave that space, and whoever is the last one to move off drowns and dies. Okay. As mentioned previously, the rats are racing up the levels of the ship towards the top deck in order to avoid drowning, but also to score those all-important victory points. Interestingly, and this is very Knizia-esque, the first rat to make it up to the top deck does not score any points at all. It's worth nothing.
Yep.
However, the second placed rat will score 5, third place will score 3, and then fourth place will score 2. Once 4 rats have made it to the top, the game will end. Players will reveal their hidden identities and score points for their rats' positions on the top deck, and any extra points they acquired via the picking up of the cheese tokens on the way up. So, as I mentioned, if you land on a cheese token, you take that and that can give you 1 or 2 bonus points to your final score. Most points wins the game. That's how you play Abandoned Ship.
Awesome, Chris.
All right. So, we reviewed a few of these now at this point. These just keep coming up, don't they? These hidden role games, Heimlich & Co., Code of 9, Fae.
We got 2 of them tonight.
Kind of. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. It's got hidden information for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess I would just lead this one off by saying, how does this game distinguish itself from those other hidden role games that we reviewed on the podcast, if you think it does at all? Is there anything that this one does that you feel like is unique or interesting as compared to other hidden role games you've played in the past? Because as we mentioned, there are a lot of these. These are almost a dime a dozen these days. So what did you think?
It's an interesting question. I hadn't thought about it that way. I don't know if I see a whole lot of difference.
Yeah, does it do anything different for you?
I mean, it's the same similar, like, well, do I move the ones that I clearly want to win, or do I try to move ones that I don't really care about as much and try to throw people off?
Yeah, try to hide.
But you can only do that for so long.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting having three, because
Yeah,
like
agree.
one of them you can say, you know what, I'm going to try to get this one, to second place, and then secretly do something with the other two. I mean, it's like you can employ three different strategies at once, which I kind of liked. I'm going to let everybody know this one's mine and see how well I do, but these other two, I'll just try to sneak in under the radar.
The fact that they overlap is interesting too, because some of your colors may be being moved by other people.
Correct.
Because they also want that rat to make it to the top. So you can perhaps like not really play to that one and let other people do the work for you.
Yeah, that was the biggest thing I keyed on too, was the fact that you have three variables instead of just the normal one. Like a game like Fae or Heimlich & Co., you have your one color. You're trying to hide that information, but you're interested in one color, whereas, you two just mentioned the three color thing introduces an interesting dynamic in that, like you just said, Jason, who do I think is on my team, at least for this particular color? With it being three colors, I mean, the likelihood of you getting all three rats to the top deck is probably pretty unlikely. If you do it, you probably won, but it also introduces a little bit of decision of, do I just let one of them just go? Because if you move one that's in the back consistently, you're just giving yourself away probably at that point, right? So there's a little bit different stuff going on there, I think.
Yeah.
At least makes it different from other games we've talked about.
Yeah, it is interesting in that when you have three, how detrimental is it if everybody really knows all yours? Because especially when you play with 4 or 5, there's probably somebody else at the table that has that color too. And it's kind of nice almost to announce that, hey, you and I are together on this one, and maybe they'll move it up because they know you're going to help them too. So it is interesting, this the whole, how do you play the strategies out?
But you certainly are putting a target on yourself at that point, right? Like if the anchor gets rolled, and I'm sure Bill is blue is one of his colors, I'm going to move blue backwards, right? So I get what you're saying. I'm not disagreeing. I'm just foreshadowing a con for me a little bit. But
I do want to say I thought that the dice play here was the mice play. I don't know. Was interesting in that there's more decisions, I think, than you would think right off the bat. Knowing that once you choose a die and you use it, it's out of the pool.
Right.
Well, assuming it doesn't have, or it has an X or doesn't have an X, whichever one it was. You can throw somebody off by choosing a die for a rat that you don't care about, but maybe that is like a low number. Like if I don't have red, but I know Chris is red, I could take the red die if I roll a 1.
Right.
Remove it from the pool and only move it one space, which means now nobody else can move the red mouse forward. Now there's the circle spaces and stuff, but that gives you even more flexibility, right? If I roll a red circle, I could take the red die out of the pool, but move a different mouse forward.
So you're not moving red forward at all at that point, right?
Yeah. So there's some interesting combinations, and then the white die kind of throws in even more wild stuff, which we'll talk about, I'm sure. Yeah. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, one other quick thing I'll mention, and I mentioned in the rules, very Knizia-esque. He's just really good at this kind of thing. I think this is just how his mind works when he designs games, is the fact that your goal is to get the mice to the top of the deck, right? You want to move them all towards the top, but the first person to get there, it's basically the equivalent of getting eliminated, right? It's kind of that same thing he does.
You just have to play the game and play in second the whole time. You must hate this game.
Maybe, yeah. But he does this a lot in games like High Society, where if you spend the most money, you lose, or in like other games like Ingenious, where you score your lowest thing, right? Like
quantitative easing,
right? He throws in these little things, and so I thought that was a nice touch to what would otherwise probably be a very deflating experience if two people figured out they're the same color and they just raced to the front top of the ship and scored like 7 points or something. I think that would be a bad mechanism. So I appreciated that he did that. I think it's clever.
Yeah. Jason, to your point about choosing a 1 of a dice that somebody else has, if everybody's in the pack and something's really high, choosing that dice to make somebody get ahead of the pack so they're going to be first is also a great strategy. Like even using and maybe this is a good time to bring it up, using the 11. There's 11 on the white dice, and the highest in the others are 6.
Yeah.
But that really puts somebody out way out in the lead. And lots of times, if you're halfway through the game, that can send somebody across the line.
Yes.
Which I feel like right out of the get-go was one of my rats every single time. somebody would throw it like 11 spaces forward, and then everybody's like, all right, we're just going to move that one.
Now we're just going to go.
And
Yeah.
you're like, okay, great.
Well, do we want to transition to cons here? Because I think that is probably a con, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that just kind of goes to the fact that because there are only 9 rats and they're all being moved by everybody, you can have one of your rats completely discarded or thrown totally off through no action or decision on your own part.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, this is a short little filler game, so it's not like it's a huge deal, but it's a little lacking in the control area, I think.
Yeah.
It didn't bother me at all. I mean, to me, just because of that, it's a filler game. It's fast.
Yeah. Right, yeah.
You get it. You send somebody ahead. It's possible that the next round, if they had the anchor, they could pull them right back, right to the pack, kind of thing. So it didn't bother me. I just thought it was it's swingy for sure.
Well, that's what I was just getting ready to say. I think the idea behind the white die, making it move one rat 11 spaces, he was trying to create a wild, zany moment in a light, short game, right? I can totally get what he's trying to do there to create these kind of like, oh, do you remember that one time when this happened, you know? Because dude, I'm struggling, folks. A mouse can really move ahead really fast with that white die, because that white 11 has an X on it.
Your die is also weighted, apparently.
We rolled it a lot. So that means it stays in the pool. So a mouse can go from the back to the front in the blink of an eye, right? And so while I appreciate the idea behind it, I guess it depends on your group and your personality whether you would find that fun or irritating.
It feels like
I
it
tended
needed
to find
not
it a
have
little
an X.
irritating personally, but I think that's more personality than anything.
Yeah, it seemed like it needed to at least not have an X on it. That
take
even
it out,
of itself maybe could have solved some of it.
Party poopers.
Yeah, the white die for me was a con. It was a smaller con. My biggest con, and this was a big con for me, honestly, and I think, Jason, you alluded to it a little bit when you were talking, so feel free to jump in, but to me, for a hitting role game like this to work, I'm not talking about like the Resistance, or, well, kind of, but that's a different kind of game, but these games like Fae or Clans we've talked about on the show before, the fun of those games to me is trying to hide as long as possible until the really last moment, or until you can't afford to hide anymore, right? And then at the very end, people are like, oh, I thought you were orange instead of blue, right? Like, that's fun, right? That's the kind of moments that I feel like you're looking for in games like this. And unfortunately, with Abandoned Ship, because of the way the game works, with rats dying and sinking pretty quickly in the game, right? It almost forces you to just out yourself very quickly, right?
Yeah, you're almost better off that way.
Well, that's what I'm saying, right? It's almost like there's no point in trying to hide a lot, because if you try to be too sneaky, you're just going to drown. And so the game forces you to move your color, right? Because if you lose 2 of your colors, you're not going to win, okay? And so, I don't know. It just felt like that goes against the spirit of what I'm looking for in these games, of trying to hide when the game is threatening you with, but if you don't move your color, I'm going to drown you, right? And so, I don't know, I felt at odds with that, if that makes sense.
Imagine this is the part of the review where everyone starts rolling their eyes at how deeply we're analyzing such a simple game.
That's right.
I mean, like, picking it to death.
We are. Final thoughts it?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Yeah, Bill, I can tell disagrees with me, so he should start.
Oh, well, not necessarily disagreed. All those things you say are absolutely true. But it is, like, it's a light filler game. It's not meant to be torn apart like this, to me. I mean, and I enjoyed the games that we played. It's fast. I like the way the board looks, watching your rats sink, and the idea that if 2 of them are in the water, they're, like, crawling all over each other. They stay alive until, one of them gets away and then the other one
It does
bites
good
it.
on theme.
Yeah, absolutely. I can see this, working well in my family group. If I'm curating games, I can see there's a time that you play this. We talk about you don't necessarily pull out lots of games, lots of period of times, but this I can see there's a group for this, because how long did it take to play? 15 minutes, 20 minutes,
short,
something like that. So for what it is, I think it does really well for that fast game. Easy to teach, easy to learn. You see what you're doing, something to laugh at. I'll give it a 4.
Nice, Bill.
Nice. I mean, what are board games if we don't dissect them to the nth degree and turn them into a bunch of mathematical formulas?
That's right. I can see the rat with his abdomen laid open on the table with little
right.
pins on the table.
All pinned out.
But yeah, no, I mean, I say that mocking myself, right? In that we do tend to overanalyze games like this. And I don't think that what we're pulling out is not legitimate. I think they're all valid points. But for some people, they're just going to be like, dude, just have fun with the game.
Right,
It's 10
right,
minutes.
right. Just chuck the
just
dice
enjoy it and
see
move
what
on.
happens.
And that's fair. I think that it accomplishes that. And so for a lot of people, I think this game would be a 4. For me personally, I think I found a lot of parallels in this game to the game Bites. I don't know if any of our
that's
listeners
another
have
good
played that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you're basically like picnic ants,
Color band.
and you're moving along this trail of different colored food items, and you're trying to pick them up. And then I don't know that if I had to choose between those two games, I would go to Bites every time, right? Because there's variability. Like the end game condition can change. There's like cards that you draw each game that change different things along the way, but the mechanics of the game more or less are the exact same as this one. I don't think that's a Knizia though, is it?
No.
There's not a hidden roll in that one though. You're just
yeah, I guess you're right. There's no hidden roll there. Or is there? No, it's based on the colors of the things you pick up.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So other people kind of know what you're doing. Either way, I think that there are other games that are very similar to this that I would gravitate towards more than this one. And so for me, I think it's a 3. But I think it accomplishes what it means to accomplish for a 10-minute game. My kids would enjoy it. They would think it's funny, right? So take that for what you will. I give it a 3, but I could see it. I don't think it's a bad game. I think it's just one that I would not prefer to play in light of other ones that we've played that are similar.
Yeah, for me, the more I play Knizia, the more I realize he's just all over the map for me. He's just all over the map for me. There are some games I play of his that I just hate. See Chin. There are some games of his that I play that I think are the best games of all time. He's just all over the place for me. And in this particular instance, he's on the bad end of the spectrum for me. I really did not like this game at all. I disliked it a lot, actually. I'm going to give this game a 2.
Oh, wow, okay.
Because, and I totally get what you all are saying, and I preface my 2 by saying I think there's an audience for this. I know what he was going for kind of the zany, wild experience in a short playtime, and I appreciate that. But the thing I kept coming back to is games like this for me, what I'm looking for is hiding as long as possible and feeling clever at the end, right? By throwing people off and people not knowing who I was and trying to be sneaky. I just didn't feel that at all in this game, like at all. I just felt like once we got a few moves into the game, I was like, well, I guess I cannot move blue and try to hide that I'm not blue, but if I don't move blue, he's going to drown, right? So I move blue, right? When he's in the back, getting ready to die, and so everybody now knows that I'm blue. What can I do about that? Why would I move blue if I'm not blue in that situation? Right? I guess you could say to throw people off, but the game is so short, you're just helping your opponents when you do that, right? There's not enough time to hide in this game. And so while I appreciate what it's trying to do, it's just not what I'm looking for in a game like this, and I didn't enjoy it. And so because of that, I'm going to give this a 2. This game was just bad for me.
Do you know of games that are in this 15-minute time frame that does allow you to do that? The only one I can think of mildly like that was, what was the game that had the Out West game with the outhouses and
Wacky West.
Wacky West.
That game is fun.
That game was
That's
fun.
longer than this game,
Right,
though, for sure.
Yes, longer. Yeah, absolutely. So not quite the.
I forgot about that game.
Yeah, that's a fun game. Yeah, because you can kind of hide it for a while in that game too.
Right.
I feel like.
Yeah, and lead people astray.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
but you make a good point. I mean, there aren't a lot of games that play this quickly in this genre, but I need for that hiddenness to be a part of the game, and I just didn't feel it. Giving it a 2.
All right.
You just don't get the strategy.
Sorry, Reiner.
Man, we need to have Reiner on the show sometime.
Yeah, we do.
Think
I'm
we can
sure
make
he
that
would
happen?
love to be on the show. He would tell me all the reasons why I was so wrong about Shin, as most of our listeners do. All right, well, if this interested you, I have good news. This game is available for being as old as it is. There are copies available at Noble Knight Games, our sponsor. So if you want to pick it up there, please use our discount code HOLIDAYGEMS24. Get 10% off of your order. There are also 6 copies on the BGG Marketplace as well.
And those are our thoughts on.
It's abandoned ship, Bill.
And those are our thoughts on abandoned ship.
Love it.
Double, double toil and trouble. Fire burn and cauldron bubble. It is the contest of the alchemists. The most talented adepts of the mystical arts come from around the world to compete. They fill their cauldrons with exotic and rare ingredients, all creating new potions in the quest for fame and honor. In addition to demonstrating their talents by replicating their fellow competitors' potions, each has a secret agenda. To promote the use of the component their school of magic prizes most highly, the person who brings the most fame to his or her school, and for themselves, will win the title of Supreme Adept.
Ooh, I'm so excited.
What's an adept?
An adept.
Adept? Adept? It's a weird word. I don't know what that's supposed to be.
Awesome.
All right. Alchemist. Not to be confused with alchemists.
Definitely. Yes.
Which is
not
a very
the same
different game.
Yes.
This is a game by Carlo A. Rossi.
Yeah. Haben gut.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Published in 2007 by Amigo and Mayfair Games, and currently ranked on BGG 4,840. So pretty close to Abandoned Ship. Actually.
That's our wheelhouse. The mid 4,000s? Oh, baby.
Yep.
Before you continue on, can I interrupt you for a moment?
Sure.
Okay. So this game was recommended to us on our guild. Golly.
Mice.
On our guild by Ultimo Ratio. Paul, he has been a supporter of us for a long time. We appreciate him. And so we picked this game out. And I'll just quickly mention, because I forgot to do this in the banter, that with this A through Z alphabet series that we're doing, I'm going to make it a point to at least select one game from that guild list on BGG, the Gem Miners list, for every episode we do of these. So when we do B, I will pull a game from the Bs on our guild on that list. So if you want to have a chance to get one of your games reviewed that you feel strongly about, put some games on there. I might pick one of those to review. So Alchemist was on that list, and so I chose it for this review.
Cool.
Nice. All right. In a game of Alchemist, each player is going to begin the game with 12 ingredient cubes, each of one of 5 colors, hidden behind their player screen. So I think these have different icons on them, like Eye of Newt and spiders and mushrooms,
like
or
claw
whatever.
Or something, yeah.
Yeah. So you start with 12 random ingredient cubes, and those get hidden behind your player screen. Each player also receives an objective card that indicates which of the 5 schools of magic or 5 colors of ingredient that they prefer or are going to want to see used throughout the game.
Yep.
More on that in a bit.
Very important.
Yeah. The game board shows a set of 10 cauldrons, each of which has space for up to 5 ingredients on it, and then has 2 ingredient colors displayed above it. Play is going to rotate around the table with a player taking one of 3 different actions on their turn. Okay? So the first action that you can do is to create a new potion. So to do that, a player is going to choose the ingredients for their potion, 1 to 5 different ingredients, and they're going to place them in one of the available cauldrons. So they can use any number of ingredients. You can use 1 single cube if you want.
Yep.
But you can use up to 5. The rules here are that you can't use either of the 2 ingredients that are displayed above the cauldron.
Right.
You can't use the same ingredient more than twice.
Yep.
So you can duplicate. You could have 2 gray cubes, 2 blue cubes, and a yellow cube. That's a valid recipe. You just can't use the same color more than twice. And then you obviously can't use the same exact recipe that somebody else did in a different cauldron.
Right.
The player is going to place one of their seals of their player color above the cauldron to denote that it's theirs. And then the player also is going to select a fame tile. This is important.
This is hugely important, yeah.
These have a value between 1 and 10 fame points on them, I believe.
Yep.
And they're going to place it above the cauldron. And that designates the value of that recipe from then until the end of the game.
Yep.
So that player is going to immediately score that number of points. And then the player receives 1 ingredient of each of the colors displayed above the cauldron. So these are like the byproducts of this recipe that you just created.
Yeah, input and output. Yep.
Right. So that's kind of a complicated action, but that's one of the three. The second is that you can copy an existing potion. So if Chris already created a potion out there and he, has 3 different ingredients and it has a value of 7, if I have those 3 ingredients in front of me or behind my screen, I can just play those ingredients and reproduce his potion, score the exact same number of points. I would score 7 points, and then also receive the same byproducts, the same output cubes. The catch here is that you can't recreate a potion that you created. Right. So if you establish a recipe, you're not allowed to copy it. So you get the points for it that one time when you created it, but from then on, you can never use it again. Also, one of the ingredients that you use when you copy a potion has to go to the person who owns it. So if I copy Chris's potion, one of those 3 ingredients that I used, I would have to give to him. So that is the benefit of owning these recipes.
Yep.
The final action that you can take is just to pass. When you do this, you get to take either 2 random ingredients from the supply bag or 1 ingredient of your choice from the on-the-table supply. And the game ends when 3 or more piles of ingredient cubes are exhausted. So all of the remaining ingredients that players have behind their screens get returned back to the supply, and then the color that has the least remaining cubes in the supply receives like the highest point value for whoever has that objective card, right?
So you did a good job, hopefully, causing other players at the table and yourself to use that color of cube a lot.
Right. And in order to do that, those cubes either have to have been used as ingredients in potions that are on the cauldron, or have to have been used to copy things, right? Because when you copy, those ingredients get tossed out of the game.
Yeah, and not returned as tribute.
Right, yeah.
Which is
you could choose if I copy Chris's potion and it requires a green cube, but I know Chris really wants green to be used up a lot.
I think that I do.
I could just make sure that I give him the green cube, which means it stays in circulation.
Right.
But we'll come back to all this in the review. Yep. Anyway, that's it for the rules, basically. Player with the most fame points at the end wins the game. So, this is a weird one.
It's super weird. I've never played a game like this.
Yeah, there's a lot of balancing between different factors here, like between do you create a new potion versus do you copy an existing one? What value do you assign to these potions when you create them, right? There's a lot of interesting decisions at play here. I don't really have a specific question. I think there's just a lot of really interesting points to talk about here, so let's just kick it off.
Well, I mean, I will say I went at this game with 2 radically different strategies. The first one, I ended up creating a lot of potions, thinking that I'm going to get that income with people coming into me. And I found out pretty quickly that it really hamstrings you when you only have a few potions to choose for yourself. Because, once you create them, you don't get to use them ever again. Mm-hmm. And it's a real, I'm going to say it's a learning curve to realize that you can paint yourself in a corner really quickly with which one of these things that you place out there. I will say, maybe just start off with, this is a game is a game of discovery. You have to play more than one time to kind of understand how the interactions work out with, like you're saying, the fame values, the equations or synergies that happen when you place things out that you just don't necessarily get it at first. At least I didn't.
I'm really glad you said it's a game of discovery. I'm going to come back to that. So I'm not going to go there yet because there's something I want to talk about first, but that's an important statement, I think. The thing I really want to key off on to begin with, and you both alluded to it, Jason, you in the rules, was how unique this game is. And it's unique in that I've never played a game before where you're creating this formula, this input of cubes, where you only get the benefit once. But you're basically trying to balance, it's hard to explain, you're trying to balance making it good for your opponents to where they use it some, to where you get that tribute cube benefit, but you don't make it too good.
Right.
And that's where the game really gets interesting, I think. Because let's just say, for example, I put a formula out there that was a red cube and a blue cube, and I made it worth 8 points. Okay, real cheap. Mm-hmm. The points are from 1 to 10. Mm-hmm. Okay, I score 8 points once for making it, but now I've just created an easy pathway for my opponents to hammer that formula multiple times over the course of the game and score 8 points numerous times, whereas I'm only scoring it once. I might be getting a cube every time my opponents do that, but I've made the deal too sweet for them.
Right. You'll never recover from that.
Right.
Like, yeah.
You'll get left if you do something like that. But on the contrary, if I'm feeling real stingy and I make a formula 2 red cubes, a gray cube, and a blue cube, and I make it worth like 4 victory points, my opponents may never use that for the entire game because they're like, that doesn't seem like a good deal.
Right.
Yeah, so you spent 5 cubes to get 4 points and will never gain any other
And you'll
benefit
never
from
get
it.
that cube, that passive cube income from players using your formulas and paying you tribute,
Right.
which you want that because what you don't want in this game is to be drawing cubes on your turn. You want that passive cube income from people using your formulas, but you don't want them to be benefiting too much from it. And that's where the game gets really interesting, I think.
But what's also fascinating is that you could also get cube income by copying other people's formulas and just getting the byproducts
getting the output.
from the copy. And in that case, you're getting 2 cubes, not just 1.
Right.
But yeah, there's so many different variables at play in this. Talk about mathematical formulas. Like
Right.
there is some sort of mathematical formula behind how you would play this optimally, and it's craziness.
Well, it's even more than that to me because it depends on how people play, what values are already out there, what equations are out there, and it's a shifting sands on the values of some of those formulas that are out there.
100%.
Because you might be able to get that extra fame point or 2 on something that people need to complete, like the circuit of equations to get the cubes that they need to do the next thing. I know this is really hard to explain without seeing the board.
It is.
But
it's good to mention, though. You're talking about these feeder systems.
right. Yeah,
So I think, just real quickly without getting into the weeds, but I think you make a great point. Just trying to get our listeners, I think, to appreciate the depth that is here. Let's say there's a 10-point formula out there that's like 2 reds, 2 greens, and a gray or something.
right.
Now the cauldron that makes red and green has become very important. Because if you make red and green, you're now feeding into the 10-point cauldron, right? So knowing that, I make that one worth more if I decide to go there, right? Because it's more valuable now, right? They might be willing to pay 3 cubes for 3 or 4 points to get that output to where they can feed into that 10-point
You make it
cauldron.
less valuable.
Right.
You could make it higher cost, lower value because people want the output.
Correct. Yeah.
And this is something you really don't get till probably the 3rd game that you play. The fact that you can do that, you can set that up, and you can foresee that flow. I guess that's going to come out. So the whole discovery part of it. So so it's super cool.
Yeah, and that's not even talking about the whole hidden objective piece of the game,
Gotta
where
talk
you're
about
also
this.
trying to bleed cubes of your color out of the game, right?
Sneakily.
Which you do by either creating new potions with that color, ideally in it twice, right? Because 2 is the maximum you can use a color in a given potion. But that gets it out onto the board, and then it's just there permanently. Or you want people to copy that formula a lot and throw that color away.
Correct.
Right. Which there's a little bit of that control aspect that we talked about in Abandoned Ship here as well, and that like people might just be throwing away your color because they don't suspect that it's early on in the game and nobody knows who anybody is yet, and so they're just throwing your color out like crazy, and you're like, sweet, like thanks.
Yeah.
So you could just kind of fall into that a little bit, but it does add an extra interesting wrinkle to everything else that you have to think about.
Those in-game points for your hidden ingredient are huge. Can swing the game. And so the thing I struggle with the most with this game every time I play this game a lot on Yukata, by the way. Been playing it a lot lately. Is figuring out how to get my color eliminated from the game without giving it away to the table. Because once the table figures out, okay, Chris is trying to get yellow is just going to keep getting thrown back into circulation as tribute, right? So there's just so many like ways you can go about it. Do you incorporate just a single cube into a whole bunch? Do you put 2 in one, but are you almost like declaring to the table that, okay, if I make a formula that's 2 yellows and a gray, I'm yellow. Or maybe I'm doing that to throw people off, right? But you do that, now you might be helping somebody else. Or are you? Because Because if they think I'm yellow, but Jason's actually yellow, now I'm screwing Jason, right?
Yeah.
There's like a lot of really interesting mind games that go on with this like hidden cube thing.
Yeah, for sure.
It is. So, what do you think this game is weighted on BGG? Have you looked?
1.89.
2.22. So that's close. To me, I love this idea of depth and complexity. As you know, the complexity is kind of the rule set. How much do you have to know to be able to play the game? And depth is like chess. You know, it's low complexity, but it's infinite depth. Right. You go forever. And to me, the weight here doesn't really belie the depth in this game because the complexity is pretty simple. It might have sounded complicated when Jason said it, but once you play it and you see it out on the board, it's pretty easy to understand the rule set pretty quickly.
Yeah.
You just understanding the implications and the depth of how all these things interact is very, very deep to me. And
totally agree.
And I find that part really very cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anything you guys didn't like?
The only thing I could throw out there, and this is a very minor nitpick, is that the passing action gives you the option of either picking one cube of your choice out of the supply or drawing blindly 2 cubes out of a bag.
Yeah.
And every game that we played, there were only like 5 cubes left in the bag.
Yeah, it's not a lot.
And so 2 people at the table get the benefit of that action, and then from that point on, it's no longer valid. And so it feels like they should have just thrown away that extra like blind draw.
Totally agree.
And not made it unfair for like the first 2 people who take that action to get that extra benefit. Because in that case, I think it became basically like the first 2 plays of the game are pass. Because it's more worthwhile to grab that extra bonus cube for that action, even if it's random, than to like get a potion out on the board first or something, right? Like that's not really that big of a priority in this game. So you might as well just pass immediately and take the extra benefit. And that felt a little icky.
So this might be community groupthink, but I'm going to throw it out there because this was my one con with this game too. But every time I've played this game on Yukata, everybody's first moves were drawing until the bag was empty and then the game started. Now, is there an advantage to jumping out early and claiming certain cauldrons? I think that there is, which is why I'm careful about groupthink here, but people that play on Yukata play certain games a lot usually. And in the games that I played, everybody just draws at the beginning of the game to draw those extra cubes. That is a design flaw.
Yeah, that feels
For
broken
sure.
to me.
Yeah, I don't like that.
I mean, I don't think there's any way for jumping on a potion first to be advantageous. Right? Because the only thing that gives other cauldrons value inherently is what other potions are out on the board.
Yeah, but everybody's reacting to you at that point, right? I guess you're kind of setting the tone of the game, I guess.
Yeah,
that
maybe.
makes sense.
That's some deep level thinking right there. I guess maybe there's some validity to that. But yeah. So that's my only con. But I mean, you could easily get around that by just saying, you know what, these extra cubes are either going to be gone or they're just part of the supply pile.
I agree, totally. Bill, you got anything?
No, I mean I noticed that same thing too, and we talked about it as we played it. That was an issue.
Feels weird.
It does feel weird. But as other cons, I don't think I really have any.
Okay. Jason, you're first.
First, eh? All right. Well, I feel like we have plumbed the depths of the strategy in this game, probably too deep, honestly, for people to understand what we're talking about. But hopefully it gave people a picture of the level of strategy involved in such a simple game. And I think this is like our bread and butter around here. Like This is what we love doing this podcast to find is games like this. And now, granted, I mean, this game is not going to be everybody's cup of tea, right? Like if that style of game doesn't appeal to you, if you're looking for like the lighter, filler type style game, you're probably not going to enjoy this one because it is mathy and it's thinky and it's deep and complex. But for me, I love these types of games. Simple rules, super deep strategy, stuff that like even on your 4th or 5th play, you're still like, like light bulb moments of like, oh yeah, I could do that and that would do this. And I love that kind of stuff. So this one's definitely a 5 for me. I liked it a lot. It is pretty thinky, so it's not always going to be like a go-to, but
it's fast.
Yeah, it is pretty fast
I
considering.
was shocked. When the first time we played it, Ken asked me, he was like, how long do you think it'll take? And I was like, probably like an hour. We played it at like right around 30 minutes. I mean, it's
Really?
like boom, 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 boom.
Wow.
Probably because we didn't know what we were doing the first time, but it's not long by any means.
Yeah, that is true. So, yeah,
Super neat.
solid 5 for me.
All right, sweet. Well, I'm just going to follow you up by saying, wow, what a freaking awesome game. This game is so good. Holy cow. This one, like Jason said, this is right in our wheelhouse, I feel like, for like our core listenership. This is like red meat for our base right here. This type of game. It never ceases to amaze me how a game from, when was this, 2007, can show me something that I've never seen before. I've never seen anything like this in a game before. It's just so unique. This setting of prices, trying to get people to use it, but you don't want them to get a huge benefit, but you still want them to use it. It's just such a weird mind game, right? All the reasons we said in the review, it's great. But I will add one more thing, what Bill said at the very beginning of the game, that's a game of discovery. Jason, you kind of said that in your final thoughts. But I want to add to that how fascinated I was with this game, because I played this with a lot of different people in our group and online, and it never ceases to amaze me how differently people approach this game. Just because of how people's minds work. Because you have that complete freedom and how you set prices and how you want to set it up. I played it with Loris one time in our group, and I was like, whoa, that was like really weird. He did like a really weird thing, and I can't remember exactly how it was, but he ended up winning. Because he was thinking creatively, right? And I'll play it online on Yukata sometimes, and I'm like, wow, I've never seen anybody do that before. It's that kind of game. While there isn't a lot of, there's really no variable setup in this game. The variable setup is how the players approach it.
Yeah.
It's just fascinating in that way. So yeah, I'm giving this a solid 5. This game would be in my top 100 games of all time if I were to start it now. It's
mine's
that good.
Flexible.
I'm not adding it after the fact.
It's in Bill's now.
That's right.
But
it's 81 for me.
This game blew me away. It really did. I just think it's really fascinating, and I'm glad to hear Jason enjoyed it. We'll see how Bill feels about it. What do you think, Bill?
One of the things this reminded me a little bit of this might sound crazy, but Spice Road, the whole filling out formulas thing. That game's a little bit of multiplayer solitaire, and this one
For sure, yeah.
takes that kind of idea where you're trying to figure out what the formulas are and really throws you in the mix with everybody else.
Oh yeah,
right.
there's so much interaction in this game.
So
right?
much interaction, and it's interesting to me because that one's kind of thinky, and you're trying to think ahead and try to build your deck, I guess, to fill out the formulas. This one is you're all working on the same ones when you assign the values and other people are interacting with it, and some of those formulas get kind of shut down to you because you used them. It's just it's hard to relate how fascinating the puzzle is, I guess, for you to try to figure it out, especially when there's 3 or 4 other people at the table playing this game and, like you're saying, doing something that you just didn't think was either smart or possible or whatever, and then it ends up being ingenious.
And you play it with 3 people you played with before, and you've got one new player, and they start doing stuff, and you're like, what is going on? Just one new person can change the dynamic completely.
Yeah. So, I mean, I won't go on, but I mean, I'm going to give this a 5 too. I had a great time playing it. I went home and dreamed about it the times we played it because I was like, what just happened? Let's do it again because I want to be on that journey of discovery again. So please tell me it's available in lots of places.
Totally is available, Bill.
Awesome.
People, y'all better have your fingers on your clickers.
I'm pulling up my phone right now
because this game is available at Noble Knight and for cheap. It's like $15, I think. Okay. So if you can get copies on Noble Knight, please do that. Again, our discount code is HolidayGems24. And there are also 14 copies on the BGG marketplace, also very affordable and reasonably priced. Easy to get.
I'll trade Igor for this one.
I'm keeping this one. I'll give you abandoned ship for Igor. A Knizia for a Knizia,
I don't know about that. That stacks them up. Now they hear the rating for it.
All right. Well, those are our thoughts on Alchemist.
Welcome to the Age of Comics. The Golden Years is a worker placement game in which players run a publishing company during the golden age of the comics, circa 1938 to 1954. Become the top comic book publisher. Players need to build their fan base by hiring the right writers, publishing comics, and sending in their sales agents across Manhattan's newsstands to grab the best sales orders. See Liar's Games for plays, throughs, more. Okay.
Extra.
Extra.
Bill's fired up.
I am fired up. Feeling like the who's the guy on the Monopoly board?
So, Bill, do you want me to take us through the intro and you do the rules, or are you going to do the whole thing?
Well, I don't know what the intro is, but you go ahead.
I will do the intro just to give you all a heads up. This is Bill's game. Okay.
Okay.
Kickstarter backed by Bill himself. He wanted to include it in the game. So, like I said, we're doing kind of a new series / 2 and a new here. So, Bill is actually going to do the teach for this game.
Okay, I'm sorry, everyone.
But I'll take us through the intro real quick. So, this is Age of Comics, The Golden Years. Published in 2023. Blech. Publisher of this game, Lyrius Games. At the time of this recording, its BGG ranking is 2,935.
Okay, so it meets the criteria.
It's moving up. It's very new, though.
It's not in the 4,000s, Bill.
Not in the 4,000.
2,000's pretty good. We've done that before.
Designers of this game, Giacomo Cimini and Sonia Goncalves. They are both first-time designers. This is their first published game.
Okay.
Congratulations, Sonia and Giacomo.
For getting reviewed by the great
Getting
Hidden
reviewed
Gems.
by the famous podcast Hidden Gems. We have decided to let you be a part of our lineup. Congratulations.
Okay.
All right, Bill.
So just so you know, Chris, there was no push to have it on the podcast. I just wanted you to play it.
That.
No, I just wanted you to play it because it was about comic books and because I know you like comic books.
I do.
And I saw it on Facebook Marketplace. It was like, Chris should play this game. So I
He's
ended
just
up
having
picking
second thoughts now because he doesn't want to have to teach it.
that too.
Play it, I did.
All right,
Bill.
So
brief rule summary. Can you do it?
No.
This is a long game.
You're gonna have to cut so much out of this, Chris.
Hit the high points, Bill.
All right,
Please, I'm begging of you.
I'm going to try.
Okay.
Sorry. Here's an overview on how to play Comics: The Golden Years. So this is a worker placement game that takes you back to the 1930s to 50s, where you'll build your comic book empire by creating hit comic books trying to become the top New York comic mogul of the Golden Age. So the game setup. Each player is basically managing 5 resources. You have writers, artists, comic books, ideas, money, which are all in service of getting fame, which is your victory points. Mm-hmm. How am I doing so far, Chris?
Doing good.
Okay, there are 4 different decks of cards. The first 3 turn over face up, 1 for each number of the players, and these are the artists, the writers, and the third for the comic books with cover art on them. The 4th deck is a deck of rip-off comics that represents basically stealing the idea of another comic. The main game board has a large bar chart on the left that has a bar for each player and tracks the fame for each comic that player creates via a cardboard chip. Mm-hmm. This is the main place where players track victory points, so more on this later. The center part of the board has 6 action areas where you'll place your editors to do various actions, which I'll also come back to. The far right has a grid map of Manhattan that shows available comic book stores on every block and a hidden chip that shows the kind of comic that store wants.
Yep.
There are 6 genres of comics: romance, crime noir, superhero, western, sci-fi, and horror. And these will be randomly and secretly placed on all those spaces. All right. Game objectives. Like I mentioned before, the goal is to become the most famous publisher by the end of the game. You do this by publishing successful comic book series, attracting those fans, and winning awards. Fame points are earned in multiple ways, but the core of it is by putting out hit comics. The game is played in 5 rounds or months. Each round you turn over a hidden calendar chip that will reveal the demand of comic book stores of a certain genre. For instance, if it flips a sci-fi genre, all the stores with sci-fi chips are flipped across Manhattan. And these have 2 values on them, one representing the total skill value of your artist and writer, and the other is a kind of sales order for how many fans you would add for that specific genre. Like I said, this is a worker placement game. The gameplay consists of placing one of 4 editors across 6 possible actions, one at a time, to hire talent, develop a comic book, get ideas, print a comic, gain royalties, and sales and promotion. I'll walk through these super fast. Yeah. All right. Hire talent, you get a writer and artist. You develop, you pick out a comic book. When you print, this allows you to place an artist, writer, and comic book on your player mat, and everything else is kind of centered around the action. Royalties just gives you cash if you stop here. And finally, the sales and promotion. I'm going to spend a second here because this one's important. The sales and promotion action is where you grow your fan base. You place your editor here and you kick off your sales rep, who is in the center of Manhattan. The map is a crosshatch of roads, and each node you go to has 3 to 4 chits on it. All sales reps can move one node for free and then pay $2 to catch a cab to go to the next node. And here's where you pick up your sales, and the sales relate to your fans or your fame and give you victory points. As you create more comics, you release wooden tokens that allow you to get bonus actions that you can put on each one of these action spots to give you something else extra to do.
Just to make them better. Yep.
Makes them better. End of the round scoring, the person who has the comic book with the most fame gets 3 points, the next one 2 points, the last one 1 point. You get money correlated to the amount of fame you have. The more fame you have, the more money you get. And then you basically turn over the next calendar chit and start it all over again.
Yep.
So that's basically how you play Age of Comics.
That's perfect, Bill.
Great job, Bill.
Yeah. I hope we made it clear before Bill started, but this game is more complicated than the ones we've just talked about. So Bill did a good job of just hitting the high points. We'll flesh out the details when we talk about our points, I think. But basically, this is a worker placement game, and you're making comic books. And I think you did a good job of kind of hitting the key points. So we'll just jump right in.
Okay, so I guess the obvious question about this is a very much a theme game. How do you think it hit on making you feel like you were a comic book mogul in action?
I'll let Chris start with that one since he's the comic book fan. But.
Yeah, I think the theme was good. I will say that this game, I don't think it's its strongest suit because it is so many mechanisms, right? Mm-hmm. I feel like the more mechanical a game becomes, with some exceptions, the less thematic it feels, because there's a lot of moving parts here. But I did appreciate that it held to that golden age of like the westerns and the romance comics and the mysteries, right? Because those were really big then.
Right. Yeah.
And I also did like the thought of your sales rep moving around the city trying to promote your comic books. I thought that was well done. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I think there's different ways that theme plays out in games, right? There are certain games that can implement theme through mechanisms to where playing the game feels like the theme.
Correct.
I don't think this game does that.
Right.
But what it does do is what a lot of other theme-based games do, is that they theme the actions and the things that you're doing, like all the different worker placement spots, around very thematic things that make sense with the theme. And I think this game does that really well. Like all the worker action or worker placement spaces all really make sense with the theme. Like you're hiring your writers and your artists, you're like increasing your printing quality, you're printing out your comics, you're increasing your fans, you're traveling around the city selling stuff. Like all of that is very thematic, I think, and they did a good job of pulling all that together. Now, does the action of placing a worker out onto a space to do a thing make me feel like I'm a printing publisher? No, not really, right? But I think it's pretty unique games that like actually manage to accomplish that level of theme integration. So I would say that, you know, from a like what the action spaces do and how they tie together, I think they did a pretty good job. Like there's no action spaces that are just totally abstract, like do this thing to like, you know, do whatever, right? Like that some worker placement games have, where it's like this one random spot doesn't really fit with the theme, but it's needed to make the game work. I think they did that pretty well, and the art is really cool. Like the fact that there's a individual chit for every unique comic book in the game that you can publish. I thought that's, you know, a nice touch. It's all Kickstarter bonus stuff, you know, but like it's a cool touch that when I publish a comic, I'm publishing a specific comic, and I have to like root through the pile and find it, and like that's my comic. I made you know, Outlaws, the comic, or whatever, you know.
It's definitely very Kickstarter-y for sure. It's got all the bling and all the unique art.
Medal awards.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
What did you think, Bill?
Oh, yeah. I mean, to me, if there's one thing it does well, I thought it hitting the theme out of the park was just what it did in spades. Because, yes, the iconography, pains that they went to make the artwork look like it came from that era, and putting it on the cards and on the chits. And so to me, the look and feel of it was great. And like you're saying, even though it's highly complex, I guess, to me, or in that there are a lot of moving parts to it.
For sure.
It all was intuitive in a way that it just kind of fit with the idea of printing something.
Yeah.
And printing comics even.
But getting into the mechanisms, this is a worker placement game. This is my favorite genre of game. So I'm a little picky about these. I'm not going to lie. I played a lot of them. I really enjoy them. And to me, for a worker placement game to work, it's got to feel tense. There's got to be that tension. And this worker placement takes an interesting approach to the worker placement that, you have some worker placements where you're vying for a spot. And if you don't go to that spot, you just can't do that action at all. Right? Like an example I could think of would be like Stone Age. If I don't go to the Boom Boom Hut, I'm not doing that this round, right?
Right.
It's one shot only. This one's a little different in that the worker placement spots are tiered, right? So you have multiple opportunities to go to a place to activate that particular action, but
Even the same player can go to the same spot more than once.
Correct. Yeah, you can go multiple times because there's multiple slots, but the action gets progressively weaker as you come in later and later in the order for that particular action, right?
Right.
So there was a nice angst there of like, well, I need to go here and I need to go here, but if I go here first, I really get the maximal benefit of that action, which is what I really need for this particular turn, right? And that was what I really felt like was the fun part about this game was I can go to all these places right now, but what's the most important place for me to go? Do I need a lot of idea tokens right now? Do I need to try to publish 2 comics instead of 1? And so that's where the tension was introduced, which I appreciated that.
Yeah, I pulled that out as a point, too. I thought that was a cool way to handle it. I almost wish that they were a little more cutthroat than they are. Because, like, the second place position in most of them was still pretty decent.
It's not bad, right?
But I think if you made it too steep, then it would, like, the person later in turn order in a given round would just be screwed.
Yeah.
Because most of the good spots would all be taken.
Although there were a couple times, like that sales rep, like when somebody jumps on the top spot, I was like, dang it. Because you're like, I wanted that spot, right? Whenever I feel that in a game, that's a good sign, right?
Right. Or the hiring, because we didn't really talk about this in the rules, but the artists and writers have a genre that have expertise in, and you really want to have your artist, writer, and comic all fall in the same genre, because that's big in-game points, and it gives you more fans at the beginning and stuff like that. And so when you flip over those cards, hiring first.
There's a race to that.
So you can line up what you have in your hand or what's been flipped out there or whatever. So that's another one that's like, oh gosh, it's certainly early game that you want to be there.
Yep.
Yeah, I thought that the card matching stuff adds in another element to the game in that ideally you get a writer and an artist and a comic that all match in genre, right? Because that's worth the most points at the end of the game, right? At the end, all of your published comics score points, and if all of those things match, they're going to score the maximum number of points. But you don't have to do that.
Nope, you do not.
You can have completely mismatched stuff, and you can still publish that comic. It will still gain fans. It will still gain points. It's just not worth quite as much at the end of the game because the colors don't match.
Right.
And so there's an interesting balance there of like, well, do I just get what I can get and get it out there,
right,
so that it can start to acquire fans and acquire points, versus do I try to get these matching sets, which is more difficult to do from a hiring perspective and timing and everything else. But I'm gaining like way more points at the end of the game.
Yep.
I thought that was a good tension.
Totally agree with you. That rush of trying to be perfect versus just trying to get them out was a good one, because another thing about getting your comics out fast, even if they don't match, is unlocking those wood cubes that you were talking about at the end of the rules, Bill, where once you publish a certain number of comics, it lets you put a wood cube under the actions, which amplifies certain actions when you take them. So there is some benefit to just trying to get them out, right, so that you can get access to those amplified actions even faster. But again, it's a trade-off. Like I said, there were some games where I pushed against that because I really wanted all my writers and artists to match up. There's decision there. For sure. And decision is always good, right? So I appreciated that too.
Yeah, there's one of the bonus actions is to be able to reassign an artist or a writer, so that even if you don't have all the genres matching up,
go back and fix your mistakes.
You can fix things, and you can just build that into your plan. Because I was doing that a lot, saying, okay, I'm going to do that, get it out, get all my bonuses, but let me grab some guy later and I'll just put it in there. So
because the earlier you get them out too, the earlier you're making money off of it, and money can be really tight in this game. So
Oh,
if
yeah.
you got the more comics you have out there generating cash every round, the quicker you can build up your engine.
Last thing I'll say is there's a lot of direct interaction in this one, obviously with how you fight over the worker placement spots. But this little sideboard with your sales rep, I think a game we could compare it to that most people have probably played that might make sense. I don't think you played it, Bill, but Jason, is Orleans.
Yeah.
Did that come to your mind?
Yeah. It's very Orleans-like.
Because Orleans has that where there's this like sideboard where we have a little pawn moving around picking up cardboard chips. And so you're directly fighting with each other to try to get places first to pick up those things. And this game was very similar and where you're trying to, I almost feel like it had to be directly inspired by it, so similar, to pick up those chips to get fans for your comics. And there's a lot of direct interaction on that board. You know, like, don't you go, you know, go over here and take these chips that I want. And so I like that part of it as well.
One thing I thought that was clever about that, too, though, is that you can't just pick up whatever you want. Well, I mean, I guess that's not true. You can pick up whatever you want, but you can't utilize what you pick up unless they have basically a strength value or something, and your writer value plus your artist value has to add up to that number or higher, right? Their skill level. Otherwise, you can't actually apply that token. And if you have a token at the end of the game that you can't apply, I think it's worth negative points or something, right?
You lose a number of points, yeah.
So while you can run around the map and swoop up all these tiles, you need to also be making sure that you can actually use them or they count against you at the end of the game. And that requires planning because you need high-skilled artists and writers. And to get those straight off of a hiring thing is costly, but to upgrade them later is also costly in a different way. So it's a fun, like, balancing mechanism there, too, of fighting for those top spots requires other stuff. It's not just like move your pawn around and pick up stuff.
What I found fascinating is as we played it and we got better at it, people went to that sales board
earlier.
So you were having to get things that you didn't have artists or comics out for yet, that you couldn't do it. And so
even just to deny other people from having
or
them.
either deny it or just expect that you were going to be able to do it later. And so that and it was taking that risk, right? That you may or may not have been able to get that comic book out, but you needed to be able to get those high fan values to be competitive at the end of the game. Yeah. So it's interesting to me because I don't know if we're ready to go in the cons, but I don't know if that's going to be the way all games play out in the future. Is like everybody goes to the Manhattan sales board and grabs all their stuff as quick as they can,
start grabbing chips,
or you know, is there a downside to that? There probably is. I mean,
well, there definitely is.
There's still a balance there somewhere
for sure, because you're also locking yourself into a plan, right? Because there's the majorities is the other thing that we didn't really talk about. Like whoever has the most published horror comics or the most published westerns gets that little like metal chip, which is worth another 2 points at the end of the game.
Right.
And that's all based off a majority. So if you just go running around willy-nilly picking up everything that's there, you're committing yourself to having to create comics of those types. So you have to plan around that.
Yeah.
Or otherwise you're going to lose out on the majorities, or you're just going to be copying other people's genres where they've already taken the token. Yeah, I think there's more than meets the eye there.
Yeah, there is. We didn't talk much about rip-offs, so I don't know if we want to talk about that. I don't know if that fits in your negative category, but there's a way to rip off somebody else's comic. If they printed something, to me it's kind of cool, but there's a muted color comic that has the exact same art in the front, but then they change
the title slightly.
Slightly, like from freedom to, what's a synonym for freedom? To liberty or something like that.
Liberty Man instead of Freedom Man. Yeah.
Exactly. So the way you get it out is you still pay your artist and your writer, but you don't have to have ideas for it because you're stealing the idea, and it allows you.
Nor do you need to have the comic book.
Right. You don't have to buy the comic book.
There's a lot. Basically, there's a lot of steps you can omit.
Absolutely.
To make a ripoff that you normally need to publish a comic.
Right. And what you're foregoing is in the in-game scoring, if you have a perfect comic, you get 6 points for it, and then this one you'll get 0 for. And you're giving up a writer in a comic. But you could conceivably get one of those wooden chips sooner. Or
you're still getting fans for it.
You're still getting fans.
Yeah.
You're still getting
income
if you get it up. So yes, I mean there's a lot of pros and a little bit of cons. So
I think this is a personal thing, and I'm just going to come out and say I didn't like this. But this is one of those cons based on my personality. I totally get what they're trying to do with these ripoffs. I see the strategicness in them. For me, they almost feel like they're not in the spirit of the game. They are, because they designed them, and I get the point of them. But it was just so annoying to try to get the writer, get the artist, get the comic book, do all these things, and that has its benefit, yes, at the end of the game for points, but then somebody to just come in and rip that comic book off and get a lot of benefits, omitting like 2 actions. Just, I don't know. There is trade-offs to it. I'm not saying there's not. I just didn't enjoy that. It's just a personality thing. That's all I can say.
Whiner.
Yeah.
Mild con.
Yeah, I think for me, personality-wise, I have like a perfectionist mindset of like, well, I want to play the game right, which
right.
Air quotes right. Like obviously it's right to play it the other way too. It's part of the game and
Correct.
It's strategic. It just feels weird, but
Same.
it is. I think it is an interesting strategy. We played this with Sam, and he was employing it a good bit.
Build it too. He won a game because of the ripoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because what we didn't talk about is that the more comics you publish, there are bonuses at the end of that track. So if you get to your 5th or 6th comic, there are bonuses out there that it would be difficult maybe to publish 5 or 6 legit comims. And so by publishing those fakes, you're getting yourself out to those end of the track bonuses more quickly. There's a lot of like fascinating stuff to that strategy because it is costly. Like you're spending time to go to the publish action, you're spending time to acquire the artist and the writer, and you're giving up all the end game scoring points for it. But the trade-off is you might snipe one of those majorities from somebody, or you might be able to get those end of the track bonuses.
Yep.
So I personally think it's a cool addition to the game, but also never used it once.
Same.
Because it just grates me personally.
Dude, it's
from like
so crazy.
from a thematic perspective.
I was the same way. I thought about it several times in our plays, and I just couldn't bring myself to do it. Not that I thought it was dirty or something. I just didn't want to.
No, it's funny because I played it 2 other times without you guys, and I felt the same way. But one of the things I found is the bonus that you get for your 3rd bonus, you have 3 bonuses you can get, is an extra editor, an extra meeple to place. And I knew how important that was. You only get it when you go to your sales rep out in the Manhattan. And that gets to be so important on round 2 or 3 or whatever that for me, things didn't line up for me able to do a legit one. So it was like, I kind of need to be able to get out in that sales rep. And I need to get out there more than once. So I'm just going to rip one off. It's going to give me that bonus, and now I can get out.
You fell down the rip-off rabbit hole.
I fell down the rip-off rabbit hole.
Now you're rip-off for life.
Exactly. But I was able to, sell comics now. But that one also allowed me to steal the...
But at what cost, Bill? At what cost?
It's my honor.
Your honor?
Yes. Yeah. It's okay. My honor's cheap. I sold it to the devil.
Liberty man, really?
How could you?
Yeah, but I mean, to me, it's one of those things that if things aren't working out, it kind of can give you an out to be able to kind of be able to keep up.
Yeah, I think. I'm glad we talked about them. But again, it's a minor con for me. I can see its value. One major con for me. Y'all knew this was coming. I have to mention that this one was big for me. So in worker placement games, first player is so important. It's so important, right? And a lot of games handle it differently. It will either rotate around the table, right? Like Stone Age, where you can anticipate I'll be first this coming round or where I'm going to fall. Or you place for it, right? Like a good example would be Lords of Waterdeep, where you're spending action to go to a location to take the first player, right? Because, again, in worker placements, having control and it being first in work placements is very important. The way this game handles it is that it orders it based upon how valuable or popular your best comic is, right? So if you have a comic that has a whole lot of fans, that equates to a lot of points. And if you have the most popular comic, you're going to be last in turn order, okay? I want to emphasize that having the most popular comic does not mean you have the most points. Okay? You could, but you just have the most popular comic. It does not mean you have the most total points at that point in time.
True.
Okay?
Yeah.
So the problem I had with this game is you want to pump your comics because when you pump them, that scores points, right?
And gets you money.
And gets you income, right? But if you have the most popular comic, you're hurting yourself from a worker placement standpoint. So you could say, well, just be in second or try to like be just above the leaders, and that's fine.
See last episode for Chris's thoughts on that.
I hate things like that. That might be my most hated thing in games. I'm learning now that I despise it when the game is like, try to work yourself into second place so that you don't get this penalty, blah, blah, blah. No, I'm always going to try to do the best that I can on my turn to score the most points, right? And so for me, this was just a huge issue where I was constantly faced with this decision of, well, I could grab all these fans and make this comic real valuable, which is worth a lot of points, but it's going to put me in last, you know? And you could say that that's part of the strategy, and I get that. That's just not fun for me. I don't like that kind of thing. Maybe if it was based on your total points somehow, that would make a little more sense, even though that's kind of catch-up mechanism-y, which I don't love either. But I hated that. Hated it.
How did you feel about it?
Point over.
How did you really feel about it?
I mean, to be honest, in our plays of it, did it not seem like the person who ended up doing well was kind of hanging back on that, right? That was my. That was my.
I don't know if I was paying that close of attention, but could be.
It was because I was paying attention.
It did not bother me at all. I mean,
that's fine. It cannot bother you.
I will say
it's a stylistic thing, but I did not like that.
Yeah, I will say mechanically in a worker placement game, I do like the idea of first player needing to be something that you have to explicitly do something to acquire, or it's equally distributed versus being like points based. That feels weird to me. I don't have like some massive revulsion to it like you do. I don't think, but I can see why you dislike it, and I think that's legit.
It just feels punitive. You know what I mean? It's like I'm punishing you for doing really well in a certain aspect of the game. Why? Why does that need to be there? So I should intentionally not try to pump my comics? No, I can't. I just don't like that kind of thing. Bill, rebuttal me. I can see you stroking your beard over there.
Well, I mean, you're just so enthusiastic with your animosity. It's hard to like say anything back.
I've been building to this moment all episode.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, to me, having played so many games with you where I feel like I'm in such a distant last place that, I mean, having a bone thrown to you if you're in last place where you get to go first and that you might be able to be competitive by the end of the game is not necessarily a bad thing. If you're in first place, you kind of make the best of it there. But you're right. Maybe having a spot where you give up an editor for that's a huge sacrifice.
That's usually how it's handled.
Yeah.
In a lot of worker placements.
Yeah.
You're placing here to get to go first next round, right?
Right.
Not you're going first because you're in the back, or you're going to be last because you're doing really well in this one part of the game, right?
Well, and I can see in this game, especially because of how valuable the editor gets, and like, let's say you're doing superheroes and it's the second round in the game and you flip over superheroes and you're competing with somebody else like Sam out there and he's doing that and he goes, oh wow, look, this flipped over 4 fans out there. Since I'm first, I'm going to jump there and I'll grab those 4 fans. Right? I can see how that would be a game changer kind of thing. And I don't know if you'd spend your editor to be able to go first. Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know if that helps or hurts, but I don't know. It really doesn't bother me that much, partly because I empathize with the people in last place.
Okay. That's fair. We want to wrap it up?
Yeah, I think you got to kick us off this time.
Oh, man, I'm starting. Oh, boy. All right.
Man, I'm going to put on my suntan lotion here because I feel the burn coming.
Okay, so this is what I would say. I'm actually going to split rate this one, okay? I will say for worker... So let me begin by saying this. This game is at a disadvantage, unfortunately for it, we've just been playing a long time, right, Jason? I mean, many years now, right? I've played so many worker placement games. So it just has a lot to compete with, okay? So for a worker placement game to really stand out, it's got to be exceptional. I think this game mechanically is solid, okay? I think it has some interesting ideas. I don't think it necessarily does anything wrong. I don't know if it has any wow to it necessarily, or it's like, wow, I've never seen that before in a game. Like I said, like the sideboard reminds me a little of New Orleans, The worker placement things kind of reminds me of a little Feast for Odin, right? Where, oh, you went to that spot. Well, I can go to this other spot that does a similar thing. It's just not quite as good, right? Again, that's not bad. Nothing really original. It's sound. The first player thing just absolutely kills this game for me. I'm sorry. It really does. It is just a bridge too far for me. I can't abide it, honestly. So, from a design standpoint, I think it's probably worthy of a 4. I don't think it's bad. If you enjoy worker placements, it's probably worth a try. For me, it's a 2. Which is crazy, I know. But I was thinking about it. Would I want to play this game again? No, I wouldn't. And it's solely because of that one thing. It would be hanging over my head the whole game. I would be thinking, oh, I can go here and get these fans, but now my comic's going to be in first. And do I want to have to? I don't even want to have to think about that kind of a thing, right? So for me, it's crazy, but just one design choice in an otherwise fairly solid game makes this a no play for me. So I'm going to give it a 2. Rant over.
Brutal.
I know.
Brutal.
It almost feels like that's something that you could house rule out to easily be some other different way of determining it, right? Just do it in table order. I don't know.
Yeah, just let it rotate
I guess there's
around
5 rounds,
or
so in a
something.
4-player game, somebody get an advantage. I don't know.
Yeah.
But whatever.
All right, Bill. It's your game. Give it a glowing review.
So, I mean, this is a weird one to me because when I think about, again, in the ideas of curating this game, it takes a little while to set up. It takes a while to teach. And so, like, most of the, cycles of games, they go on your shelf for months at a time. Then you have to get it back out. You have to, like, relearn it all and then teach it and then get it back out. So, for me, I have a hard time thinking of where will this play well. I mean, I have played it with my daughters, and they've kind of enjoyed it, but I don't think they were super excited to play it again, kind of thing, because it was like even though comic books are exciting or whatever, I don't know if producing comic books is very exciting, right? I mean,
it's a lot of steps.
It's a lot of steps, all right? And it's like you could be producing anything. I mean, yeah, you are producing comics, but it's not like you're being the superhero while you're producing
That's a good point. This is that kind of game where it's like you have to get this to get this to get this to get the final product, which can feel glacial sometimes, I guess.
Yeah. So to me, I can imagine now putting it on my shelf, feeling the impact or the thought process, the inertia to get it back out again, and what's the reward of getting it back out, relearning it, teaching to somebody else, and doing it. So I feel your pain, I guess, but it's totally different because, again, I don't really necessarily mind the first player thing because I don't know. I feel like you're gonna be able to do something that's going to push you towards being able to win the game, and part of it is figuring out what you can do. I mean, that's just the way that it is designed, and yes, so somebody goes to the hiring people that you didn't get, you just got to do the next thing that you think is best.
Yeah, but if you're going fourth in a 4-player game for like 2 or 3 rounds in a row, that's just killer.
Well, but if somebody else is going first, they're probably going to get ahead because they're
it wasn't my experience, and not until the end when they passed me, because I was going last every round, It's aggravating.
That's true. Well, so that's a great point of, is it worth getting those 3 points every round where you were first to...
Well, that's what I'm saying.
No, I get it.
Do I intentionally sandbag myself and not score points when I can just so that I'm not last? Those are decisions I don't like. I can get why some people would, but it's just not for me. That makes sense.
Yeah. No, I get it. Anyway, I'm going to give it a 4, but it is so interesting that I'm giving 2 4s, and the difference between the rats and this one. I mean, there feels like there needs to be a third dimension to this, because these are such totally different games.
Yeah.
That it almost feels like it's not in the same ballpark for those 4. So
Yeah.
I don't know what to do for the rating system for that. I will also say, and give the caveat with, I can imagine not ever playing this again and selling it tomorrow. But I do feel like it's a solid game. I feel like it's got good bones. I feel like there's people out there that like comics, and especially looking at the Golden Age, this might be for them. But I don't know. I have trouble thinking about who in my life would want to play this, and I don't know who that is.
Really. I think that's really good insight. Honestly, Bill, I'm not joking. I think it's a very mature response for you, because where you've gotten to in your shorter time playing games, you got there much faster than I did. You know what I mean? Like, I think you've done a good job of just kind of figuring out, like, is this a game I'm ever really going to play again?
So I'm doing this podcast with us and listening to us complain about games so much.
That's right.
All the different ways to complain about a game. Bill's heard them all now.
Go ahead, Jason.
All right. So this one, I think I'm going to kind of thread the needle between the two of y'all a little bit, literally with my rating, which I think I'm going to fall at a 3. But I do agree with what I think both of y'all have said, that mechanically I enjoyed playing this game. I think it's solidly a 4 mechanically. For me, though, to Chris's point, there are other better worker placement games out there, and ones that I think what the big appeal to this game above others is probably the theme. And comics are just not my thing. Like, I didn't grow up reading them. I don't read them now. Really, I'm not opposed to them. I don't know much about them. And so while the theme is unique, it's not one that really, like, sticks with me. And so for all the points that you mentioned, Bill, in terms of, like, well, it is a heavy teach, how often am I really going to convince a bunch of people to want to play this? Like, I'm thinking if I owned it, I don't know how much play it actually would get, right, outside of this group. And so, and since Chris hates it, like, I would never play it again. So I think, what am I trying to say? I guess mechanically I enjoyed it, and I think it's worth playing for someone who really enjoys comics and really enjoys worker placement games. I think it's a worthwhile game to explore and to play. I think there are some interesting ideas in it. Nothing earth-shattering, but there are interesting ideas here, and it's well executed. But for me personally, I don't think it's a game that I'm going to seek out and try to buy, or even really, like, urge us to continue playing outside of this episode. So I think for me that means it lands in the 3 category.
Yep.
I'll add, it's a commitment to even set it up and tear it down, thing, because it takes 20 minutes or something.
It feels very much like a modern design. You know what I mean when I say that, Jason? You know what I'm saying? Like, if I were to play this, I'd be like, this came out in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And if you've played board games for a while, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Just tons of bits, blinged out pieces, huge table presence, long rules. You know, like, you either know if you're into that or you're not. You know what I mean? You have to know what you're getting yourself into, right?
Right. I would call
that's most designs now. So, a lot of people probably really like this game.
Right.
What do I know?
So I haven't looked at the depth on this on BGG, but I could guess it's in the 2s. But to me,
I'd say it's in the mid to high 2. I'd say like 2.6 or 7 probably.
Really? But it's because of the complexity. I mean, this is like, to me, high complexity and low depth. I mean, kind of thing. Which is the opposite.
Lots of fiddly bits.
Opposite of Alchemist.
Right. Yes.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if you're interested in trying this game is expensive. Holy cow. Probably because it's just so highly produced.
Yeah.
There are copies on Noble Knight, but they're high.
It's also a Kickstarter that probably never got a wide printing.
Yeah, and I wonder if that's what it is. I tried to do a little bit of search on the forums on BGG. I wasn't seeing anything. I wonder if maybe another print run is coming, and then it'll come down a little bit. But they're like in the $60, $70, $80 range on Noble Knight and BGG.
Mine for sale.
You backed on Kickstarter, right?
No, I bought it on Facebook Marketplace.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I wouldn't have bought this for you. I mean, it was like $40 or something. Like
okay.
That.
So you might be able to find some cheaper copies out there. There are 17 copies on the BGG Marketplace as well. All right. Those are our thoughts on Age of Comics, the golden years.
Well, thank you for joining us on this episode of Hidden Gems. If If you like what we're doing here, please remember it's a huge help to us if you leave a rating or review on your podcast platform of choice and or follow us on our various social media platforms. Those simple things can make a big difference for the show's exposure so that more folks can enjoy exploring games with us. Check out the BGG Guild if you want to interact with us or share a game that you feel is a hidden gem. And if you're so inclined, please consider supporting the show over at patreon.com/hiddengemspodcasts, where you can access and listen to all of our backstage extra content. Until next time, I'm your host, Jason.
It's Chris.
This is Bill.
Thanks for listening.
This episode of Hidden Gems, number 70, was recorded in Raleigh, North Carolina on December 3rd, 2024. Well, gang, it's beginning to look and feel a lot like Christmas, and that means it's time for us to help you fill your gamer stocking with 3 small box games. However, will these small footprint games be great gifts or lumps of coal? Tune in to find out. Hidden Gems is produced and edited by Chris Alley, Cameron Lockey, and Jason Yanchuleff. Our Board Game Geek Guild is monitored and managed by honorary Hidden Gems team member Ghidorah. Our Discord channel is monitored and managed by honorary Hidden Gems team member Snoozefest. Our show's logo was illustrated by designer and artist Caitlin Nieto. Check out her work on Instagram at It's Caitlin Nieto. We would love to hear from you. Feel free to join the discussion on our many social media accounts. You can find us on Facebook at Hidden Gems Board Game Podcast, Instagram at hiddengems.podcast, and X at Hidden Gems Board. Disagree with one of our reviews? Have something you want to say about one of the games we discussed today? You can also make your voice heard on our Board Game Geek Guild at boardgamegeek.com, guild number 3874, and on our Discord channel. Throw that in there. Once again, thank you for joining us on Hidden Gems, and until next time, fellow gem seekers, enjoy your games, enjoy your search.